in life, the things that you go through, of course, make you who you are. And since the beginning of time, it's been territory, it's been a certain race of people, and whatever it is, people have to fight for whatever they have. When you come to Xavier, it's Xavier versus Cincinnati. So that was a week ago when I could have been the 3 Final Fours here, but if I'm 0-4 versus UC, that's something that will not be able to sit well with me for the rest of my life.
This is the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing. Now here's your hosts, Paul Fritschner and Adam Baum, with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.
Welcome into another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. Paul Fritschner alongside Adam Baum, the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers. And to my left, a very special guest today that I will introduce in just a moment. As always, we are presented by Deer Park Roofing and the official payroll sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Payroll Partners. Well, it is, to my left, maybe the most requested guest on this show. It is Tu Holloway. Tu, welcome back to Xavier. We appreciate you coming on the show. It's great to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Everything is well. Thanks for having me. Really happy to be back in this building. Special place.
Well, Tu, to introduce you, obviously a legend here at Xavier, class of 2012, Xavier Hall of Fame, class of 2018. School record free throw percentage, 85%. I know that Sean is a big proponent of that. So 85% at a free throw percentage. But as you go down the list, 7th in scoring all time. You're 3rd in assists at 550. You won 100 games in your Xavier career. You went to 3 Sweet 16s. You won 3 Atlantic 10 regular season titles. In 2011, you were the Atlantic 10 Player of the Year, and you were a 3rd team AP All-American, consensus All-American, 3rd team from a bunch of different outlets as well. One of the best players to ever wear a Xavier jersey, and it really is an honor to have you back here and talk about your career and kind of reminisce on a lot of things that make you a special part of this program.
I was also, I led the nation in triple doubles one year too, so don't forget. Yeah, but, I had of course I had a great career here, but, due to the help of Coach Miller, Coach Mack, Mario, everybody put me in a great position to do well. They helped me out throughout my time. I'm just fortunate to be a part of the Xavier family.
When I don't think a lot of people know this, especially with as much time that's gone by, but, we were really fortunate to get you here. Your recruitment was very different, and if Kelvin Sampson would have continued to be Indiana's coach, there would have been a real probability that you may have never played in a Xavier uniform. You remember all that?
Yeah, I remember every day because I moved here and I think September 2007 to do my senior year of high school at Harmony Community School, and which is no longer around anymore. But I signed with Indiana, I think, in November. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, Coach Sampson gets he had to resign or whatever at Indiana University. So for the last 5 months, I was signed to go there, and then all of a sudden, I needed a college to go to. No one was recruiting me anymore or anything, so it was just weird. And then being around here every day, I was able to see the culture because, at that time, Xavier was in the Atlantic 10, and, it just wasn't, for the rest of the schools that were recruiting me at the time, it was all Power 5 schools, as you would say. So being here and able to see, on paper, we weren't a Power 5 school, but the respect that I seen that Xavier had around the country. I watched a game that year where I think we dominated Kansas State when Mike Beasley was going crazy. Mm-hmm. We beat up on Virginia, and then being able to see everything that was going on, and also knowing that Stan Burrell was a senior, Drew Lavender was a senior, it was a place that I could come in right away. And that year, you guys lost in the Elite 8 to Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook. Yep. So I remember watching that, and I'm like, wow, I want to be a part of it. If I was in another place in America at that time, I wouldn't have known how powerful Xavier was.
Right. But because you were going to Harmony here in
5 minutes away, I was able to see the impact. Yeah. And, that was a very glaring thing for allowing me to want to come to school here.
A lesson that I learned then, and that was a long, long time ago, and then I've since learned the lesson many times over, and that is when you're a good guard, like when you can play, you can play with other good guards.
Right.
And, I think Duke, for example, if you look at the history of Coach K at Duke and you really look hard at some of the things that he did that were amazing, like different or out of the box, he started to have, 2 point guards, one that might be a sophomore, one that be a freshman. You remember like Jay Williams and Chris Duhon, right? And the more guys that you have that can play, it's amazing. Like not only are you not in each other's way, but in some ways the other guard that you're on the court with can bring out the best in you.
Right.
So going back to that same period of time, we had a couple guards that were committed. If you remember, we had, Jordan Crawford was going to come in from a transfer. We had Mark Lyons coming in. We had Brad Redford.
Michigan,
I remember, and you asked the question, and people would say, well, okay, you're recruiting Tu Holloway, or Tu Holloway is now going to come to Xavier. How's that going to work?
Right.
And when you really look back, right, of how you felt about it when you first make the decision and then how it did work, think about you and Jordan being on the court together,
right.
you, Jordan, and Cheeks
Right.
being on the court together, and how well that really worked,
Yeah.
And when I have, as a coach, gotten away from that, I'm always reminded, and a lot of times I think of Tu, because that was really the gift that he brought to Xavier. Because once he came in, even in your first year where you didn't start, you had Dante, but you were such a big part of the team, you would come in the game and like it didn't affect anybody else. It actually helped them.
Right.
But I'm sure you've learned that same lesson in Europe, playing in all the different places you played. But when you think back to your Xavier career, playing alongside those other guards, do you see it like I do?
Most definitely, because it's crazy that you say that, and because playing with all the great guards over the years, like you kind of get like a prestige where it's like I watched like many great backcourts in college, but I remember coming here with Cheeks and we competed that was my best friend, but we competed every day to the point where it's like we had to get broken up and like almost fist fights all the time. But at 5 a.m. it was like, all right, yo, we got to go run. We got to go do this. We were like inseparable as far as and everything with competing. So I look back with Jordan Crawford. Jordan was an NBA player. We all knew that. But it's like I got a prestige of playing with him because there's certain games that I needed to step up. And it was like, oh, you're Tu who was in the backcourt with Jordan Crawford.
Right.
Then the next year it's like, oh, now you got another backcourt mate with Mark Lyons. Even Dante in my freshman year, I wasn't ready to be the point guard of the team. I remember we just got blown out against Duke. And you were like mad at the loss. You wasn't mad at me. But you're like, this is the time now. I need you to be my starting point guard. I let you sit the first half of the season, and I'll never forget that. I'm like, damn, we just lost by 30, and I'm about to be the starting point guard the next game or something like that. But that part of being with Dante, because I had like a safety blanket with him my freshman year. All right, you start the first whatever minutes of the game. I get to let my nerves calm down a little bit, and then I could step up. But I remember when you were recruiting me, and I'm like, well, Coach Miller, you got, Brad, Michigan, Mr. Basketball. You got Mark Lyons already. And you're like, well, look around the country. I remember at Pittsburgh, they had a hell of a backcourt there at the time. Kansas had Sharon Collins and Ronald Ramon from New York and Mario Chalmers. And he was like, that's how basketball is going to be played now. So you had that vision way before. Now you're seeing around the country where everybody in the country is having 2 point guards. Whether they play the same or one is a scorer or passer, but it's just that comfort of having 2 guys that you trust with that ball at the same time.
I think the other thing it does for somebody like you in terms of development, it also allows you and forces you to some degree where you got to score too.
Right.
Because back in the day when you had a pass first point guard, it was assist, low turnovers, be an extension of the coach, make everybody better. And when your opportunity comes, well, then you can make the other team pay.
Right.
If you're out there with another point guard, a lot of times one of you, if not both of you, look, the deal here is you have to score too. And I think when you look at scoring 1,800 points, I could have never predicted that you would have become an 1,800-point scorer.
Right.
And that's a lot of points. 1,000 points is a lot. 1,800, puts you in a different category. But I think the other thing, too, for you is of all the players that I've coached at both Xavier and in Arizona, you have a gift of being the same under pressure as you do at the beginning of a game or in a blowout. As a matter of fact, sometimes I actually think you're better when the stakes are higher. At least when you were a freshman, right?
Oh, really?
When you were a freshman, it was like you would worry about if this was a team we were getting ready to play and we were supposed to win, how engaged is he going to be? How focused is he going to be? But if you're playing UC in the Crosstown Shootout or you're playing major games, you never really had to worry about him. Where do you think that came from?
Well, that's actually still my problem to this day. Well, I'll be in Europe and it was like, oh, we got an easy night. I look like the worst player on the court, but a big game. So I would definitely say my upbringing. You know, just coming from Hempstead, New York, you had to see a lot of things and deal with a lot of things. My upbringing, I had a great life growing up as a kid. My parents been together my entire life, but it was just lessons that I learned early that you never could see, like you never know what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. So therefore, you could never react too much because, one day everything is good and tomorrow someone that you rely on is no longer there or you can't have them right there. So I would say like just being even keel was something that I learned as a kid, just playing sports and just living through life. So, I would say definitely my upbringing.
We played his freshman year in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was one of those exempt tournaments. I think it was an ESPN run event. And I think everybody knew that the field was really good. I won't even be able to name all of the teams that were in the field because some of the teams that lost actually went on to have big seasons in the tournament and advanced, but I can remember our games in order. We started off by playing Virginia Tech. They had a very good team. They had knocked on the door of the NCAA tournament, and they were poised to break through. And that was when Dante made a shot from like 75 feet. It was crazy. One of the most really iconic shots, I think, in school history when you think about it. Was a buzzer shot. It beat a really good team and catapulted our team to like great heights. Right. But the prize when we beat Virginia Tech, we played Missouri. Missouri pressed the entire game. Mm-hmm. And again, you think about this is November of his freshman year. These are like maybe game 4, 5, and 6 of his career.
With a broken foot too.
That's exactly right. You weren't at your best. And then we beat Missouri. Missouri, I think, was a 2 seed or a 3 seed in the tournament that year. Yeah. And they were really, really good. We played Memphis, and Memphis was, I think, an overall 1 seed. Right. They had been on a roll. Coach Calipari was their coach. But that's when we all figured out that we had something incredibly special with Tu. It was how a young freshman could play under that pressure. I forgot he even had his foot. He was about 75%. And playing 3 games in 3 nights in Puerto Rico, all on TV, against the best teams in the country. And I'm going to say that he shot from the free throw line probably, I would guess if you looked it up, I won't be far off, maybe like 20 for 21, maybe even more. You went, I think, 9 for 9 against Memphis to seal the deal.
10 for 10.
10 for 10, yeah. I could still remember it because we needed every one of those. But, here you watch this freshman, he's the guy that we should be trying to keep away from the free throw line, right? But we were getting him the ball. He was getting fouled, just going to the foul line. But when you could do it that early in your career under pressure against that competition, and again, that's to my point where I think the better that the team was or the more at stake in the game that we were getting ready to play, he would rise to the challenge. And I know after I left for Coach Mack, in his next 3 years, he did the same thing time and time again through his career.
I think, I hate to go back, but I talked to Brad Redford. He called you a philosopher.
Right.
You're a very introspective guy. I think you're an interesting guy in that regard. And we kind of touched on this already, but I want to take a moment to appreciate how you ended up here, right? Like you picked this Harmony prep, you come to Cincinnati, Kelvin Sampson loses his job. And it's like the things that had to happen in order for you to make it here, like do you have an appreciation for that today?
Yeah, it was destiny. It was clearly was the place I was supposed to be. So I never forget when I was like 12, one of my coaches died in the World Trade Center, Coach Dan Trent, and his wife, like she basically like I lived with them for like 2 years when I was like 13, 14, 15, around that time. and Coach Trent played Division III in Clark University in Massachusetts. And she always tell me, she'd be like, Terrell, you always want to be a big fish in a small pond. So that even making my decision to come, because I remember being recruited, like it was Ohio State, it was Kentucky, it was Oklahoma, Tennessee, and it was Xavier. And I'm like, I just feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. So everything happened wrong for me to get here to be in the right place. That's how I always see it. Yeah.
I think looking back at some of your biggest moments over the course of your career, you talk about shooting free throws. You think back to the 3 free throws that you made at the end of the Kansas State game. You think back to the Purdue game, being down 19 with 10:44 to go, and probably maybe the most iconic game that's happened here at the Cintas Center to come back and win that game to score. I think you scored 13 points in the final 5 minutes or whatever that is. However that played out, it's certainly a game that anybody that is a Xavier fan would point back to. I want to start with the Kansas State game because the way that game played out, you know, you come down the court, you think that maybe Kansas State is going to foul up 3.
Right.
You have the presence of mind as an underclassman to take that shot to even force yourself to get the 3 free throws and then to step up to the line and force overtime. You step up in the biggest moment. What's going through your mind when you step up to the line there, and kind of how did that whole situation play out?
At that level, you know, that was new to me. So to be honest with you, I didn't have no fear because like it was like the first time I've been in a situation like that. So it was like exciting, to be honest. I didn't like, now one time I think my team seen me make a lot of free throws up until that point. We had been 2 years in, so I got a confidence on them watching me. Like they think I'm supposed to make it, so I think I'm supposed to make it. So it's kind of easy. Today, if I go to the line, to be honest, I might miss 1 or 2 of those shots. I've been through so much in that time, but that was new to me at that point. So to be honest, it was just like a exciting time to be experiencing something like that. So you're watching it, but I felt like you from home watching it, to being able to go out there and shoot. It was pretty easy at that point. And
then the Purdue game, maybe the most iconic game of your career. One, is that the most memorable game of your career here? And 2, take us through the final 15 minutes of that game.
Well, I would say my most memorable game here would be my first game. Of course, my first college game. Like, always want to know how I feel. And also my sophomore year against UC when we won in double overtime, because that was the first time where I felt like, all right, I'm ready to rock and roll now. Like when I was able to have the ball in my hands, crucial moments, make shots, like the things that I worked on in the summer finally was coming to fruition. That would be my most memorable time. But that game alone, I remember it, the Purdue game, because I was the first, outside of people working here, I was the first person in the Cintas Center that day. Like, as far I got here at 7 o'clock in the morning. Ben Botts at the time, he was like our GA, and I wanted to just be early in the arena for some reason. And I got here, I took like a nap on the couch. I laid down for like an hour or 2, and my teammates started coming in. But just being here playing in that game, because we were so like sluggish. I think we had just came off a big win against Vandy, and we had UC the following between Vandy, we had UC coming up. So I think we were like looking forward to that game, and we thought Purdue, for whatever reason, you know, they got a great coach, they had great players. For whatever reason, we just thought like we're going to show up and win. We had got ranked like maybe top 10 in the country, but those last couple minutes of the game were just like, we didn't quit. We didn't think we were going to win, but we didn't quit. We were just like, yo, just play defense, try to score, and see what happened. And literally, like, I think we started getting stops or something, because I didn't heat up. Maybe Cheeks or Kenny or someone got a couple buckets, and we started like, you know, coming back into the game, and then we got into the bonus early. I think that's helped us out against Purdue. I think maybe it's around 7-8 minutes we got into the bonus, so the league started going from 20 to 16 to 11 or whatever, and then we had a couple big shots, but. It was remarkable just being able, because everyone in this room right now, we all as kids went to the park and counted down 5, 4, or we shot in one spot and made 3 or 4 or 5 shots in a row. So think about as much basketball that I played in my life, it's probably been only a handful of times where I'm able to go make 4, 5, 6 shots in a row like that. So now it's like all the work I put into my life up to that point finally came to play in front on the biggest stage, ESPN, 10,000 fans. So it was like a remarkable feeling that now as you get older, you realize there's things that might only happen once or twice in your life that you might not never feel again. But I know exactly, like thinking about it, I had my family here, and I remember how I felt exactly. I was so excited, and it goes back to what you asked me. I was so excited I couldn't even cheer because in my mind I'm like, oh my God, this shit is really happening. Like, it was just like bizarre to me.
I think one of the other ones, you look at the NCAA tournament, a game against Notre Dame,
right,
where you have a chance to play Lehigh in the next round after they upset Duke, but you got to get by Notre Dame first.
Right.
You have the ball in your hands, about a minute to go or somewhere in there. You bank a shot in on the baseline off the glass,
right.
a shot that's like physically you don't even know how that shot goes in. But again, it's just I don't know if there's anybody watching or listening to this that could think back in a Xavier program. You can think of some great names, but is there anybody else that you would want with the ball in your hands with 2 minutes or less to go than Tu Holloway? And yet again, that game against Notre Dame would stand out.
Yeah, that was another. I remember because we were like the 10 seed.
Yeah.
We were the 10 seed. We knew Notre Dame was a tough Big East team.
Yeah.
So it was. I remember the play because actually the play that I shot was the same play that we ran against Purdue when I hit one of the threes, pin down, come get it, ISO, go hard right. And I remember, I'm only 5'11" for real. So I know Jack Cooley was like 6'8", so I'm like, I'm going to try to beat him. I couldn't turn the corner, and he contested it. I'm like, all right, I got to shoot high to get it over his hand. But it was a shot that I wanted. I wasn't out of control. It was a shot I wanted. And, at the end of the day, I already made up my mind, make a miss. This is what I wanted. I'm going to be okay with either one of the results. But that was a great game for my team because, like I said, we fought back too because – if I remember, Notre Dame played like a real slow style where they pass, and then they come set a pick and roll the last like 10 seconds of the possession. So being down 10 points versus a team like that is like being down 18, 19 points because they want us, and they're a great defensive team. So we knew, and we had, at that point of our season, we had been through so much. We built so much armor that we were, like, there's a picture that I have of all of us, like, it's like 5 of us lined up with like 8 minutes left of the game, and we wasn't defeated. It was just that we all had faces of no, it's time to go to work, and it was just another hurdle that we had that game to just be able to overcome that deficit, and we fought the whole way, and we were able to win that game, and that was another big. That was probably that's my favorite NCAA tournament game because we fought back. Going through what we had to go through my senior year to be able to get to that point. So I was really excited about that win right there.
It's one of the things that you learn talking to players, great players, is their recall of moments that they were in. And if you listen to Tu talk about it, he's just not talking about it on what he did, but he's seeing the score of the game, how much time's in the game, who was in the game with him, the set play that generated the opportunity for the shot. And a lot of times that's what you see, like the difference between players. Because there's a lot of guys that can score and shoot, and there's guys, in his case, that are taller, quicker, and more athletic. Really, those aren't his gifts, but his gift really comes from just listening to him recall how many games that you've played, how many years have gone by since you've left here. If I just bring a game and say, this game, this date, he just can immediately go into the game and recall different things like that. And it's amazing how great players have that trait in common.
The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Deer Park Roofing, a company that's provided elite service for homes and businesses since 1996 and leads the industry in professionalism, quality, and responsiveness. Whether your needs are residential or commercial, like the outstanding work on the Cintas Center, the home of Xavier basketball, Deer Park can handle any job and ensure it's done right. Deer Park's motto is protect what's important, and what's important to you is important to Deer Park Roofing. Visit deerparkroofing.com.
What makes us human? Humanity is found in the actions that redefine care. Actions that we at TriHealth take every day. By seeing those who feel invisible, hearing needs that have been ignored, TriHealth is healing the body and the human spirit, so all can know and live a better life.
Welcome back to the Sean Miller Podcast. Too, I want to ask you about your decision to stay at Xavier after Coach Miller left and went to Arizona. You play 1 year for Coach, and then you decide to stay on and play for Chris Mack. So I want to allow you the chance to talk about that early part of your Xavier journey and that really important decision to stay on and still wear a Xavier jersey.
Well, it's the time, then it was 2009. It's totally different now where I couldn't just transfer and play right away. Maybe who knows if I could go back in time, what the decision would have been made then. But being able to, I felt like I had unfinished business here from my freshman year. I'll never forget, we just lost to Pittsburgh, and we'll get like a whole bunch of fan mail. We'll have fan mail all the time, and like we get back from the locker room, they give me like a few letters that someone a fan wrote. And I had 1 point that game. I had like 1 point, 2 turnovers, and a fan wrote me a letter, and the fan was like, "We had so much expectations. You was a top 100 recruit coming here. You're terrible." And that shit broke me. Like, I'm telling you, like, someone seen my face. They like, "Yo, what the letter say?" I'm like, "It was so good." But that fueled me for the rest of my career. I stopped reading the message boards. To this day, I don't read message boards. But that fan particularly fueled me so much. And I'm like, there's no way I could leave here. All of my friends from New York at that point was in college having success, and I was having like the least amount of success. But I was on a good team, so it wasn't my role. That's one thing I would say. I understood my role at Xavier. I felt like if I did anything more as a freshman, I could have messed things up. So I knew like, all right, next year is my time. But I never forget, transferring was the only way I would have left Xavier. They kicked me out of Xavier, but I was like, no, I got some unfinished business here. There's no way I'm leaving like this.
I think the other thing too I wanted to talk about is, we talk about your improbable route to get to Xavier and become a freshman, to make the decision to come here. Coach Richardson, Book, and you knew each other for a long, long time. Right. He was on our staff, which gave you an inherent connection to this place as well. So, once Coach Sampson left and you then take the next step to say, okay, now what am I going to do? Where am I going to go? I thought that was a big part of why you came here as well.
Yeah, definitely. Coach Book, I've known him since I was like, 11, 12 years old in New York. And then I played for him on the New York Gauchos. So when I was 16, I played for him on the Gauchos. So now I wound up,
who was on that team? Who would have been some of your teammates?
At that time, Kimber Walker, Chuck Bryant, we all played together. Yeah. A lot of guys in New York. Jordan Theodore that went to Seton Hall. So we had a whole Big East.
You did. I think Durant Scott would have been younger.
Scott, Chris Fouch went to Drexel. Yep. So it was a whole. We had a lot of guys in New York, but no one booked that long. And then I moved to Cincinnati, and like no one basically knew where I was at. And then Luke Murray calls me, and Luke Murray is like, "Hey, Tu, Book is at Xavier."
So Luke Murray then wouldn't have been a college coach.
Yeah, Luke was just like, right. he was the assistant on the Gauchos at the time.
Yeah.
So this is all our journey started together from the New York Gauchos. Yeah. So Luke called me. He's like, "Hey, Tu, you in Cincinnati? Book is at Xavier." I'm like, I don't know where that is or nothing. So I called Book, and next thing you know, I'm literally signed to Indiana. And next thing you know, things happen with Coach Sampson, and I'm a recruit here through the connection of course, Coach Book.
The other part about Coach Sampson leaving Indiana when he did is Jordan Crawford. And we recruited Jordan really hard out of high school, finished second to Indiana, and then had the opportunity once he made his decision to transfer to welcome him here to Xavier. But you think about those two guys would have potentially been playing at Indiana. It's a different story. Yeah. I don't want to say thank goodness the change happened, but, getting both Jordan and Tu to Xavier. The rest is history because the impact both of these guys had on this program and university is enormous. Jordan for a shorter period of time, but they were on the same team, and I think that they fueled each other, and obviously Tu's career speaks for itself. You know, the other thing about him is every time that I'm around him, his size is striking. He plays bigger than his actual height, and one of the reasons is the dude's got the biggest hands I think I've ever seen on a guy 6 foot tall. I really mean it. Show your hands. Like his hands in the NBA, they actually value that, and
right.
I'm sure people have given you that feedback.
Hands, yeah.
It's your arm length and just like guys being actually taller than the head of their height. Yeah. But his hands are just unbelievably big, and I'm telling you, I think it's a gift for you.
No, definitely that.
Defense, offense, handling the ball.
It makes me 6'3", 6'4".
I believe that, yeah. No doubt. And he's always played bigger than his height.
One of the really interesting things about you is I think the more that I've been around Xavier and the program, I think the more things that I've learned. And you could poll a bunch of fans from over the years, right? And they might all have a different thing that's most memorable about you, a different game or a different this or a different that. But you've become synonymous with this program because of the Crosstown Shootout, right? And you mentioned your sophomore year. Mm-hmm. There was obviously another shootout game in this building. But what do you remember about all that? Because I think the interesting thing now is every year the shootout rolls around, and on Twitter and Instagram and everything, I see your post-game speech every year from after the brawl.
I would say in life, the things that you go through, of course, make you who you are. And since the beginning of time, it's been territory, it's been a certain race of people, and whatever it is, people have to fight for whatever they have. When you come to Xavier, it's Xavier versus Cincinnati. So that was a week ago when I could have been in 3 Final Fours here, but if I'm 0-4 versus UC, that's something that will not be able to sit well with me for the rest of my life. So coming to this university, you know that, hey, we have to win that game. That is the biggest game of the season.
No, it's well said. There's not another game like it too, because like it's Arizona, you say UCLA, Arizona, that must be an incredible rivalry, especially sharing the same conference, right? And it was. If you look at the talent level of both teams and how it felt, it impacted conference standings, et cetera. It was a big game. Yeah. It's nowhere near as big as this one because here we don't share a conference. You only play the game one time a year, not twice. And the distance between the two schools is 4 miles, not 400 or 800 or an hour flight. I'm talking about 4 miles. And I also think the difference in the school, the size of our school, no football, very different than UC, right? And I think you put all those qualities together, and it is what it is. We can talk about it in whatever terms we want to, but it's a very meaningful game to everybody involved. Most importantly, the fans and the people that make up this city.
Growing up in New York, our communities are broken up into sections and all that. So it's like, I'm from Long Island. Before I go to Queens and worry about who's the best player in Queens, before I go to Brooklyn, Manhattan, I have to be the best player in Hempstead. This is how I look at Cincinnati as far as, okay, before we go anywhere else in the country, UC is trying to be the best team here, Xavier's trying to be the best here. So that brings a different kind of fight where the rest of the world don't matter. It's about home first. So this is why that rivalry to me is so big, because we're both great schools trying to see who's the big dog.
So,
well said.
So for you to hear that quote leading up to it, probably maybe inspired that even a little more going into that game.
You know what inspired it before that game is because it was the year before they beat us by 20. So, and then I feel like me personally as a competitor, I don't even talk, you guys never even see me talk trash one day in life when I actually play ball. So to hear leading up to the game, at this point, I'm feeling like, man, I'm the best point guard in the country. Like, you guys going to talk, this is how I'm feeling at the time. You guys going to talk about me today. Like, if I would have been asked a question about one of their, he's a great player, that's that. But to have my name being mentioned like that stirred up a different kind of energy leading up to that game. So that's where you see that particular energy coming from, me kind of being upset, remembering I lost the year before, and just hearing my name being mentioned prior to that game. That's the energy you see from that point.
When Tu played in college, the rules were much different in terms of what you could or could not do on campus. For example, the summer when he played, only the strength coach could really put him through any type of regimen, whether that be conditioning or mostly in the weight room, right? If he wanted to play basketball, all the guys on our team, they could play pickup. We could kind of help them establish the time they're going to play pickup, but we couldn't have direct access to them. I think during your career, it might have then gone into, well, we could work with you in the fall in small groups.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I think that's where it was when I was here. We could work you in groups of 4 or less for maybe 2 hours a week. You probably remember this, right?
Yeah, it was like a real small amount of time.
But because of that, you had to have this conditioning program. And we named our conditioning program the 10th War Program.
Right.
And the reason is we break the game into 4 10-minute wars. Every college basketball game is the same in that immediate timeout accompanies the first dead ball under a 4-minute period of time. So at 15:58, war number 1 ends, right? At 11 minutes and 52 seconds, the first dead ball, war number 2 ends, and it goes all the way. The 10th war is the last 4 minutes of the game. So the strongest, the toughest, the most pressure, that's when it all comes down. That's the crowd remembers the last 4 minutes. So in terms of preseason conditioning, naming it the 10th war, in my mind, makes perfect sense. But when he was here, we had to do more conditioning, and we had the annual mile run. So when he says I didn't know him, the coach, you never know any of your freshmen when they first get here. Like you do through the recruiting process, but you don't have that ready familiarity of, man, when it gets really difficult, how's this guy going to react? Or in this workout, or how does he do under pressure? Tu talked about it. Will he accept his role younger and not understand that his best days are ahead of him? He did that amazing, right? But I'm going to tell you, for somebody who's as great of a player as he is, and who had the career here at Xavier that he did, keep in mind, I've already told you, one of the best freshmen that I've ever coached, coming out of the gates, he got the job done, and then he went down for a period of time with a foot injury. Like, we would have never made the Sweet 16 if he wasn't on our team as a freshman. The dude's the worst preseason conditioning player that I've ever coached.
Yeah.
You think about that. Unbelievable under pressure, fearless, tough-minded, heart and soul, love him. This guy hated to run.
Yeah.
We had a test called the Riley test. I know you remember it.
Yeah.
It could break people. I mean, it's Pat Riley's test. That's why it's called the Riley test. He did it with the New York Knicks, did it with Miami Heat. I think they even have a different version of it now. But we tried to almost go textbook. We just copied it. Guards had to run it in this. Forwards had to run it in this. Bigs had to run it in this. There's nobody that ever played at Xavier who ran the Riley test that would say anything different than it was maybe the hardest thing I've ever did. But to watch him run this mile and the Riley test, I could still remember. I remember thinking, like, man, I don't know if he's going to make it. I don't know if he's going to play. Am I right?
No, 100%. I didn't make it. I never made the mile in 4 years. And
so I didn't even know that after I left. I'm only going on
the Riley
what I
test. I made the Riley test my senior year, and then the treadmill I was decent with. I can do. You know, psychologically, I didn't understand why I was running. You see how you see how he said the 10th war and all this?
Yeah.
18-year-old kid, I don't see that. I'm like, Coach, I'm here. You told me I'm here to play basketball.
Right.
Why am I running up and down this court like this? Like, I'm not here for this part of the game.
Yeah.
So psychologically, I couldn't grasp the 10th war.
If you could have seen him, in between sprints and running, you always keep an eye on the players because, look, on a serious note, things can happen. You know, we're challenging these guys, and sometimes dehydration or what they did the night before. I mean, all this comes into it, and so you're really looking at him. Stand up, drink water, hydrate. You got 30 seconds until your next run.
Yeah.
I mean, he was bent over, and it's like, is he okay? Is he going to be able to get up?
Yeah.
And I remember saying, God, this guy's a point guard.
Yeah.
I mean, this is not going to go well, you know? And look, another thing that I've learned from him is, and by the way, you hear coaches say this, sometimes your best lessons are taught by your own players. So like this would be another one. don't ever judge somebody on preseason conditioning. Because we can talk about other people that if you just judge them on their preseason conditioning, you're like, man, tough. This guy's going to be a great teammate, great player. And that same guy, he can't deliver under pressure. He's not nearly as good of a basketball player. So there's a fine line between judging someone on that one part of things, especially preseason conditioning.
And what's super interesting hearing you say that is in preparation for this, I pulled up Tu's Wikipedia page. And it's like you don't take a break. Like you have not stopped playing basketball. I mean, your Wikipedia page is just like 3 seasons in a calendar year with maybe 3 different teams. Like you have put a pace on professional basketball that I don't think most people can comprehend.
Yeah,
it's very simple. He's trying to make the most money that he can for his time ends.
Right, and then because when I can't, it's over with. But, you know, I like to continue to play. It's weird because I go to seasons where you know, a guy might play from August to June. See, I was in Mexico last year from August to November. Then I went to Nicaragua from November to March. I mean December to March. And then I was in New York all the way so I took 3 months off, but it's just like I play during unconventional times also. So like right now where a lot of guys are back in Europe, I'm get to enjoy this time right now with my family. Yeah. Watch some football in September, October, and then I'll go back to work. So it's just that like, and then I found an opportunity when I was like my second year as a pro, where a lot of guys go to Puerto Rico and Mexico as 30-year-olds, 32-year-olds. I found opportunity at 24 years old that helped out the rest of my career. So it was just that I found something 10 years earlier in my career than the average guy would. So it just worked out differently for me.
And again, we didn't talk about this, but you're about 13 years deep in terms of your professional
My next
career.
contract would be the beginning of my 13th season.
Which is, again, remarkable.
How you feeling?
Difficult to play anywhere at the level that he's played at for 10 years. Yeah. Start going 13, 14, 15 years, that's a great run.
Yeah. I feel amazing. You know, I never had any injuries. And then I go to teams where they know, like the last 6-7 years of my career, I've been in places that understand how I operate. Like, okay, we're going to get my agent to tell them, the team will get there August 10th. We're going to the mountains. Hey, Tu's going to show up 2 weeks before the season.
Again,
he's going to be in shape when he get there.
So.
But I'm not going to the mountains running. And so that's honestly was the key to my career, was finding places that fit to where I could play at. Because a coach, you know, a coach might not, European guys are different. They might not understand, like, hey, like we get to the game before the game and guys do their pregame. I watch Netflix and I do yoga in the summertime. I don't train basketball. I just make sure my weight is down. Then when I get, because I play so much basketball during the year, the last thing I want to do is be on the court training for an hour, 2 hours a day as a pro. Yeah. And we, at this point, we know what's our bread and butter. We know what keep making us money. So you try to get to a point where, okay, I know what I need. This is what I need. And I'm done.
You know, you talk about staying in shape, and we're all a product of our, you know, parents, and you talked about, you know, your family, your mom and dad. I'll never forget the first time that I saw your dad, and I was walking down the hallway in the Cintas Center. It would have been a day of a game, and I think it might have even been your first game.
Right.
And he was here to see you play your first game. As you know, his dad, he doesn't miss games, man. Right. He'll try to be there on the road. He'll try to be there for every home game. He loves the game, loves watching him play. Still watches Xavier. We've gotten him tickets here even in the last
games at the Garden. He's
couple
coming.
games. But he was doing pull-ups, and I remember looking in the weight room. I looked and I said, "Who is this guy doing these pull-ups in the weight room?" You know, and I went in, and he was doing his pull-ups, and he was like 14, 15. He like landed. He goes, "Coach Miller, Terrell Holloway."
Right.
I'll never forget it. But to his credit, he looks the same today as he did when you played here. Yeah. And he would have looked probably the same 10 years earlier, like physically fit, does an amazing job taking care of his body. And you're right. He loves the game, loves Xavier, obviously loves you. But it's always great seeing him. When we go to the Garden or we're playing at Seton Hall, to have him behind the bench, it feels right to me.
Yeah, he's Philadelphia. Wherever you guys at. when you was in Vegas, when playing in the Pac-12 at the time, he flew out there, watched a couple games. He's gonna support. You know, he feel connected to. You know, he honor you recruiting me and what you guys did for me. So he's always. When you guys at the Garden, he's like, yeah, I need 8. I'm like, Dad, I don't play there, bro. Like, I can't ask for 8 tickets. So now it's to the point he just go right to Mario or somebody because he know I'm like, I can't do it for you. But my dad he feel connected to the program, and he's on top of being a basketball fan. But as far as his body, he's been a vegetarian for like 35 years. You know, he don't smoke, don't drink anything like that. So he take care of his body to the T. That's why he tell me all the time, like, hey, Tu, you good. You could play till you 40. I'm like, Dad, I don't know if I want to be in Europe at 40 years old still playing ball. But he's definitely a fan of the program.
Tu, one more thing I want to ask you when you talk about being part of this program. You know, you walk in here a few minutes before we started, and Tom Iser was in here, who's been the SID here for decades. And one other name that I think is very special to you is Sister Roseanne Fleming. Somebody that has her jersey retired up there and has been extremely impactful to decades of Xavier players that have come through here. I know she's been impactful to you. What does somebody like Sister Roseanne mean to you in this program?
You always, in life, you always remember people who treated you bad, or you remember people who treated you really well and took time out. So that's one thing I could say. I remember first getting to campus. I was always like, I felt like I could think properly. But I didn't have the proper academic, like I didn't know how to study. I just never learned that in my environment growing up. And you think, well, I don't know how to study, so I'm not just gonna pass this test or do whatever. When I got to the campus within the first couple of days, Sister Fleming, like we had like a couple books to read or something. I'm like, I'm in college, I've been waiting my whole life, it's July, I'm not reading any books and all that. But she personally would come, call Coach Miller, call Book, call Mario. Hey, Terrell needs to do this, he need to do that. So it was just impossible to disrespect someone like that because she personally would take so much time out of her day to make sure that I was doing the things I needed to do in order to get a college degree. Yeah. So that was
and she gave me some advice that's exactly what you said. And she gave me the advice when I was a coach. She said, you know, I always hear you, Coach, talk about graduation, the graduation streak. And, you know, the goal of these young people is to one day graduate from Xavier. But if you only talk about that, what you're going to see is the route for these guys when they come here to getting there will be much more difficult. The better way of putting it, and really what we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that they know that they need an education, that they learn while they're here, that they grow while they're here, that, you know, they master certain things and they do certain things better after being here a year than they would have when they first got here. Like, don't forget the educational part. Focus them on that, the learning and what it does for them. And the graduation, that'll just take care of itself. It's really a great way of putting it. And without him realizing it, that's exactly what he said right there. You know, we're not talking to him about graduating in the summer before his freshman year. We have to be able to inspire him to get an education and to do some of these things along the way.
Stop renting your power, own it. TGE Solar makes it easy to purchase solar panels for your home or business so you can take control of your monthly electricity bill and start saving today. They'll help you find the best solar system to meet your needs, and their expert in-house installation team makes the process seamless. They're proud to be based in Cincinnati, family owned and operated by a Xavier alum. Mention this podcast and save $1,000. Visit TGESolar.com to request your free energy evaluation today. The Sean Miller Podcast is proud to partner with Payroll Partners, where you're not just a number. That means providing a best-in-class HR and payroll experience that was built on award-winning technology and live support customer service with a dedicated payroll specialist who's just a phone call away. You shouldn't have to choose between technology and customer service. At Payroll Partners, you get both. Payroll Partners is locally owned and operated by a proud Xavier alum. Visit payrollpartners.net. That's payrollpartners.net. Welcome back here to the Sean Miller Podcast. Coach Miller, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, Tu, we're thrilled to have you here. And one of the reasons that we wanted you to be here in person is, I've personally been waiting a long time since I returned back here as the coach to be able to have this opportunity, and that is that we're going to retire your jersey, number 52. As you know, the 4 retired jerseys that have been hanging up in the rafters for now almost 25 years. Trayvon blew it. We've retired his jersey, and we're retiring number 52, Tu Holloway's jersey. So forever, not only will you be hanging from the rafters, but no player will ever come here and be able to wear 52. And let me just say this. It gives me tremendous pride to be able to say that to you, because when you're the coach that looks you and I at 17, 18 years old, Harmony Prep, going through that decision-making process, and you look then and see who you are today, what you accomplished when you're here. And look, what you accomplished, for the record, number one, was I'm going to say at the forefront of all 3 Sweet 16 teams, including 4 NCAA tournaments, 3 regular season conference championships in the A-10, 1,800 points as a point guard, and over 500 assists. Free throw percentage, big shots, big moments, being at his best in big games. You earned it, and man, I'm just really, really, in my mind, honored to be in this place to be able to say congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach.
You got it.
I'm I'm honored to even be put in the class of these great players. I'm honored to be a part of the university. It took me to leave here to realize, outside of being born into my family, this is the greatest thing I ever did in my life. When I walked here, I remember looking in the Centaur Center, being a kid, not even imagining. I just want to be able to score 1 point a game. Right. Not even imagining having my jersey in the rafters. So, as far as basketball, this is by far the biggest basketball accomplishment I ever had. This is something that I don't want much out of basketball, but this is something that that I really wanted. Yeah. Because I know how much, forget the games, the daily preparation, the waking up early, the going through the ups and downs, the wins, the losses, the sharing the moments with my teammates. I wish every one of them could come here whenever the jersey go up. I wish they all could be a part of it, because I know what it was like competing every day in practice. Like, that's the part I love the most, when we were competing in order to, try to get to a one mutual goal that we all wanted, is to win the game. So it's a pleasure. I'm happy to everybody that's been a part of it with me. And I'm just so thankful to be in this situation.
Players know players. If you ever want to deep down know whose number should or shouldn't be retired, behind closed doors, you just have to have conversations with players that played with him and before him and after him. And by the way, against him, coaches that have coached against him. And the respect that he gets from his teammates, from coaches that coached against him, players that played against him, obviously his teammates, people that coached him like Coach Mack and myself, it's 100%. It's unanimous that he's one of the greatest players to ever play at Xavier. And when you're that, you need to be in the rafters. So it's going to be awesome to see it go up. Congratulations again.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, too. And I will say, we don't have a date scheduled for when that ceremony will be. I know, like I said on Trayvon's episode, we'll probably get a lot of questions about that, whether it's this season, next season, whenever you can make it back. And,
right.
And it makes the most sense to do that. Your jersey will go up there in the rafters, and I think all of Xavier Nation would be, just thrilled to hear this news and to know that you're honored the way that you are. Because like we started the show, like we've talked about this show over the last hour, not too many players, if any players, have worn a Xavier jersey that have done the things that you have done, and it really is incredible. So thank you very much for being here today, and congratulations, too.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was fun, too. We really appreciate you coming back, and I think if I've learned anything from my time being around Xavier, you're truly a one of one. There aren't many other dudes like you, so
thank you.
This has been another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. We thank everybody for watching and listening. Make sure if you are listening to this on Apple or Spotify, you go in, leave a rating and a review. We always appreciate it. Make sure you follow us on the all the social media channels at Sean Miller Pod. Like, subscribe, rate, review on YouTube, all of that good stuff. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Deer Park Roofing, and the official payroll sponsor of the Sean Miller Podcast, Payroll Partners. This has been another episode of the Sean Miller Podcast. We'll see you next week, everybody.
This has been the Sean Miller Podcast, presented by Deer Park Roofing, with your hosts, Paul Fritschner and Adam Baum. Join us again soon for another episode with the head coach of the Xavier Musketeers, Sean Miller.